add main cities like Cebu, Davao, Bacolod, and Iloilo, other destinations in the Philippines like Siargao, Batanes, and even Tablas are benefiting from trade and tourism. Increased economic activity has created more jobs and more opportunities. The Department of Tourism also noted that 6.62 million tourists visited the country in 2017, an 11% increase year on year. However, this increasing number of travelers has put a strain on the country's airports, particularly the Ninoy Aquino International Airport. According to the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines, we have a total capacity of 31 million passengers, way below the current passenger volume of already 42 million. Ilan ba sa ating mga kababayan ang nakaranas na ng delayed flight? Ang punot dulo nito ay ang katotohanan kulang na sa kapasidad ang mga pangunahing paliparan. Maraming panukalang ihahayag para maibsan ang pasakit ng mga pasahero. Isa na rito ang panukalang ilipat di umano ang ilang flight mula NAIA papuntang Clark Airport sa Pampanga na mahigit 100 kilometro ang layo sa Metro Manila. Mailang ding nagmumungkahi na gamitin ang Sangli Air Base sa Cavite, mayroon din man ang nagsabing mamuhunan para sa expansion ng NAIA o gumawa na lamang ng bagong airport sa Bulacan. Certainly, there's no lack of ideas, but whatever action is taken needs to make sense for the traveling public, that they are able to efficiently transfer from one flight to another, that they are able to catch their flights, and they are able to fly safely and comfortably. To be sure, NAIA has long breached its capacity and there's only so much one can do to move people across a congested airport, even with the best of technologies and the most efficient of processes, unless we do an expansion. What we would like to do is find out what measures have been taken to alleviate congestion at our main airport. How has the communications, navigation, surveillance, air traffic management system improved air traffic? Ang sabi ng NAIA, kailangan daw i-rationalize ang NAIA terminals. Matutugunan ba ng pagbabalasa sa mga airlines? Sa mga terminal, ang kakulangan ng kapasidad sa NAIA. We would like to hear from NAIA regarding its proposed terminal reassignment or rationalization. Is this really the best option to decongest NAIA? If so, what is the basis and empirical evidence or study that you can offer with regards to this? We do not need band-aid solutions that will not really solve the problem and even run the risk of even making the problem of airport capacity worse or inconvenience our ordinary citizens, our travelers. It is incumbent upon us to support the growth in trade and tourism, proposals that will ultimately lead to the regression of the airlines and the number of flights are counterproductive and counterintuitive. Now is the time for more strategic steps to decongest NAIA. And I would like to acknowledge, therefore, our resource persons. Perhaps, instead of calling you one by one, you can introduce yourselves and also your designation. Let us begin with the DOTR representative, sir.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, Your Honors. I'm Ski Amaya from the DOTR, Undersecretary for Aviation and Airports.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Central Action, Congressman Sarmiento. I'm Ed Monreal from MIA, the GM for NAIA.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Your Honors. I am Carmelo Orsilia. I'm the Executive Director of the CAB.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Your Honors. I am Tony Gonzalez from the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines Air Traffic Service.
Good morning, Your Honors. I'm Paterno Mantaring Jr., Vice President for Corporate Affairs of Cebu Pacific.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Your Honors. My name is Alexander Lau, President and Chief Executive Officer of CEBGO.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Your Honors. My name is Michael Shao. I represent Cebu Pacific. I'm the Vice President for Airport Services.
Good morning, Your Honor. I am Ines Jose. I represent AirAsia. I'm the head of Network and Regulatory Affairs.
Good morning, Madam Chair. I am Major General retired Ricardo Banayat, the OIC Deputy Director General for Administration.
Good morning, Your Honors. I'm Fred Mison, the Senior Vice President and General Counsel for Philippine Airlines.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Your Honors. I'm Sani Pascual, Philippine Airlines VP for Airport Operations.
Good morning, Madam Chair. My name is Malu Duenas, representing the Board of Airline Representatives.
Good morning, Your Honors. I'm with the Provincial Bus Operators Association. I'm Alec Jackie.
Good morning, Your Honors. I'm Maricor Acol, President of the National Center for Commuter Safety and Protection.
Good morning, Madam Chair, to the honorable members of this committee. I am Attorney Dawn Butay from the DBM.
Okay, let us begin. Perhaps the DO, well, if the MIA, the General Manager, the GM of MIA, sir, would you have any opening statements or maybe I should ask for Senator Lacson first. Sorry.
I don't have an opening statement, pero obviously we all know the problem, di ba? Apparently, we also know the solution. So no matter how many meetings, how many public hearings, how many presentations we have, ang solusyon lang talaga is implementation, hindi ba? But ang tanong is, why are we not doing it? So, ano tayo? Overload na tayo lahat ng statistics, information. Every time mag-meet tayo, yan din naman ang pag-uusapan. Yung passenger measured capacity ng terminals, yung road measured capacity ng EDSA. Alam naman natin lahat, but what are we doing about it? Anyway, Madam Chair, yun lang siguro pinaka-opening statement ko na.
Parang tapos na yata yung hearing natin sa opening statement mo. Okay, now let's ask Congressman Sarmiento if you have anything to add, sir.
Wala naman po, Madam Chair. I was here because of the local bill. I did realize that the Senate, our counterpart, would be tackling the rationalization of our airport terminals. Just for the information of Madam Chair, we already conducted 2 hearings on this particular issue. So I'll be an observer here.
Well, we know how industrious you are, sir, and it's good to have you here also as a resource. Perhaps we can reconcile also both of our observations. So let us now begin with the GM of MIA. Mr. Monreal, do you have any presentation or manifestation? May PowerPoint po kayo. Panoorin po natin.
I have a very brief overview, but let me just first, let's not concentrate first on the PowerPoint presentation. I'd just like to start my opening statement by, yes, we do agree that there is already a congestion, meaning we have overstated the throughput of NAIA in total, which is 31 million, but right now we're running at about 42 million. That's about 6.5% increase from our total throughput as of this last year, Madam Chairman. Okay. In terms of your statement about the delays, yes, there are some delays, but when we started off, we have implemented already various initiatives in terms of how to address the so-called colorum before our time, meaning airlines are slotted takes off and land even without any particular schedule in that particular window. We have addressed that. We have implemented the 5-minute rule. We make sure that no airline can take off and land without any approved slot. We don't allow airlines to put up flights without terminal capacity and so forth. However, the delays are basically two-pronged, Madam Chairman. There are the authorities concerned, and likewise the operators. Okay. As of now, I don't know if the rest of the other resource person would say otherwise, but majority of the delays are basically on the side of the airlines, meaning it's becoming a consequential delays. When their flight gets late, there's a snowball effect, and right away when they come back, when they leave the airport on a delayed basis, obviously their slot when they arrive is already out. So my personal view here is, I guess the airline should also be more prudent in making their schedules, in making their rotations. I personally came from the airline for quite some time, and I guess the operators should make sure that the minimum ground time should be at least 40 to 50 minutes, so that when flights come in late or departs late, there's still some excess fats that they can recover, so that the succeeding operations will be on time. I guess everybody experienced that when one flight is late, especially for domestic, the succeeding flights coming back is delayed. So yes.
Normally, the cause of delay, could it be also coming from the other end, like where the airport they're coming from? Normally, what's the cause of delay? Is it their inefficiency or beyond their control, perhaps?
Madam Chairman, what I can see is delays because of some technical problems, issues about lack of crew, from their origin, especially aircraft that is being used from international flights coming in and used for domestic. Their flights are also coming in late, maybe because of ATC requirements from their origin. It's a complex sort of issues that has to be addressed. What I'm asking, probably, I've been talking to the airlines to look at their rotations, meaning they don't, I guess it's a business, how to call this, approach, that the more you fly your assets, the more you use your assets, the more money you're gonna, earn. Like it's an airline word that let's sweat our assets, meaning use it, because it's more expensive to park an aircraft rather than flying the aircraft. So that's where I'm coming from. I guess the airlines should just come up with a more realistic schedulings and turn around time. So
you're saying, gamit na gamit tong aeroplano,
Opo.
hindi nila binibigyan ng kaukulang ground time para magawa lahat ng dapat gawin.
Sa isang banda po yun. And then, I must admit, as a part of the operational requirements, dapat to may spare. And sabi naman po ng mga ibang local carriers, they have spare aircraft. But, we call it predictable surprises. We don't know when the aircraft is going to have a problem, although they go through a process of maintenance, but there was always a chance that an aircraft may be unserviceable for a certain item, can be cured within 30 minutes, an hour, or overnight, depending on the magnitude of the problem. So, with a very, very thin rotation time for the airlines, it's really quite difficult to put some order in terms of our aircraft rotations and on-time performance. At the end of the day, it's the passenger who suffers.
Ang gusto niyo rotating time, how many? At least on the ground, 40 to 50 minutes?
From my experience with the airline before, at least an hour.
An hour. And are they able to comply?
I don't know if Cebu Pacific, Philippine Airlines can state your ground. I heard they're looking at a 35, 40-minute ground time. I'm not sure, but they can probably validate that comment.
Okay, so moving forward, do you have anything else, sir?
Okay, the reason why...
Before I forget,
Senator Lacson.
there's something that GM Ed mentioned that caught my attention. It is more expensive to park an aircraft than fly it. How is that? Kindly expound.
I hope I can rationalize my explanation. Yes, sir.
Ano yung connection for our education? Anong connection do sa mga delays?
Okay. Parking an aircraft, meaning there's no passenger. When you park an aircraft, you park it somewhere else. You don't earn revenue. While you fly the aircraft, although there's an expense being attributed to it, you earn revenue. So while the aircraft is on the air, it's more economical rather than the aircraft is parked. because it's not generating any
So how would
revenue.
it affect now the delays, the congestion sa airport?
The congestion basically is when there's a snowball effect, meaning we are all traveling through our domestic airports. Pag isa pong flight o dalawang flight na delay, dadami ho ang pasahero sa paliparan. So makakaroon ho, seemingly, meron pong congestion na nangyayari. Pero the truth and in fact of that is flights are delayed.
Pero sa akin sa layman, walang business sense na i-fly mo yung aircraft na walang pasahero.
Kaya nga po, ang sabi ko pa kanina, Mr. Senator, sir, without due respect, ang sabi ko po kanina, kung lumilipad at ginagamit pong gamitin yung flight, mas matipid because meron po siyang sinasakay na pasero, so meron po yung revenue generation. Pero kung nakapark ko at hindi ginagamit, idle po yung aeroplano, yung asset, wala ho silang makukuha ang revenue para doon sa particular na aeroplano.
Anyway, sige, later na lang.
Yes, sir. Sorry po.
Go ahead, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, we thought it wise. It may not resolve the congestion, but we're taking off from a point of view that there are many complaints already by passengers, especially those taking off in Terminal 2, wherein an international flight comes in, the facility doesn't really cater for all the requirements, basically the customs, immigration, quarantine checks. So pagka dumating po ang flight lalo sa Terminal 2, mga 2-3 lang po, makikita po natin at maobserbahan natin, pati doon po sa escalator, nakapila na po ang mga pasahero. It's very unsafe to have passengers enduring that kind of process. So, kasi ho nangyaring ganyan, dahil ang Terminal 2 po, noong 1998, nung ginawa po yan, it was constructed as a domestic terminal. So yung mga fasilidad po na kailangan for an international operation, hindi po nakonsidera. In fact, pati pa yung mga toilets na dapat free-flowing, pagdating mo, pwede ka na pumunta sa toilet, hindi ka pa pwede makapunta dahil pipila ka muna sa immigration. So temporary solutions po ginawa namin, nagpalagay po kami mga additional toilets just before immigration. But the point here is, let's use the terminal how it was constructed. Terminal 3, ginawa po yan ng 2000 para maging international terminal. Pero ngayon nagiging mixed use po. So there are some facilities that are not being used properly according to the design of the terminal. So doon po kami pumasok sa terminal rationalization na sana mapatupad natin sa tulong ng mga airlines na ang Terminal 1 and Terminal 3 maging purely international terminal. Ang Terminal 2 at Terminal 4 ay purely domestic. We're putting some sense in terms of how to use it. It may not solve the current congestion because of the extremely distributed flights and the throughput ng ating paliparan. Pero we're starting somewhere na kailangan umadress yung mga concern din ng ating mga manlalakbay. So may I just give you an overview. Based on our study, we have several options, but a combination of next page, please. Okay, a combination of slots, kasi ang unang-una po i-consider po natin na kung meron pong mapaparkingan ang eroplano pagdating. Based on the schedules that we have now, ang Terminal 1 po ay kayang gawing purely international. Sabi ko po kanina, Terminal 2 domestic, international po ang Terminal 3 at domestic ang Terminal 4. Status ko po ang Terminal 4. Base ho sa mga slides, sa mga slots po nila. Next page, please. Next page. Okay. Ang ginawa ho namin panukala ay out of the currently Terminal 1 is being used as international operations. Ililipat ho namin ang 27 out of the 31 operators in Terminal 1 to Terminal 3. And yung natitira pong anim? Apat na terminal. No, yung anim sa Terminal 3. Ilan naman natitira doon? There are about 6 foreign carriers now operating also in Terminal 2. They'll remain there in Terminal 3. The domestic operations of Cebu Pacific, we will move them at Terminal 2 to make sure that it's now a full domestic operations together with Philippine Airlines and said go. Yung international flights po ng Philippine Airlines will be moved to Terminal 1 plus 4 foreign carriers who are originally operating there. So basically that's the plan that we would like to implement. We have talked to the airlines already, and during our last hearing in Congress, initially the deadline set was 45 days, and we asked for reconsideration, and the Speaker graciously said, yeah, we'll do it in 6 months' time starting today. That 6 months' time didn't come from Congress, but came from the airlines who made their position paper, except for Cebu Pacific, who wanted for a year for the rationalization. So that's where we're coming from. We've started already meetings with the airlines. We will soon advise them which offices they will take, and then we'll go for the target of 6 months, Madam Chairman.
Actually, GM Monreal, let me also compliment you before I start asking you questions. You know, I frequently use the airports. I know that there's still really the congestion. It is a problem, but based on my observation, it's a lot cleaner now. Even the bathrooms are clean, and that's quite a concern. I know it sounds trivial, but it shows an impression, and I thank you for that. The decor is more tasteful than before. I mean, this is also with your leadership, but of course, the more important aspect that we are trying to figure out now is the time in motion and also the convenience of the public. Now, I know this came about because of the long-standing problem of congestion, but if you follow the news, this is prompted by a call to move the domestic operations of certain airlines to Clark. Am I correct? Initially, that was what was mentioned, right?
Yeah, thank you, Madam, for the positive comments. But the issue about the transfer to Clark was part of our initial step to decongest the terminal. There were airlines who made their sacrifice to fly to Clark to help us decongest the terminal. And partly, the direction of asking or limiting the general aviation to fly a certain window, it helped us a lot decongest the runway, the usage of the runway. This one has been thought about a year ago of rationalization. In our meeting, except for Cebu Pacific, who asked for a reprieve, started from sometime July, asking that if we could consider they would like to engage a third-party assessor or a consultant to study the whole project. So I said, yes, we will agree to that. They promised that they have to do that last year, but until now they haven't really given us any study.
GM, with all due respect,
yes,
it's good that they offered that, but shouldn't it be from the government side to be able to determine which consultant and to do that study so that we don't just arbitrarily decide this is where you move without an actual study of how it will affect flow?
We did some study with our team, and based on, as I've said, based on our study, the most logical is basically Terminal 2 to be used as domestic, and then Terminal 3 as international and international for Terminal 1. The reason why I agreed, because they said there's so many flights that they will be, will be affected. With all due respect to their point of view, I said yes, but I made it clear to them that whatever the result will not be accepted hook, line, and sinker by the authority. You know, we have this saying, with all due respect to Cebu Pacific, I said, whoever top surveyor, of course, the assessment will somewhat be at least favorable. Siyempre sila ho nagbabayad. I thought I was so transparent to them. And they said yes, they agreed, and they will finance together with the rest of the airlines. And unfortunately, I guess, the rest of the airlines didn't really foot the bill. So it was Cebu Pacific who really just contacted or had a contract with this independent assessor, which is I think in Australia.
So then have they submitted the results?
Wala pa po. Humingi po sila hanggang May this year. So kami naman do, para ho lahat, makita lahat ng avenues kung may pagkukulang at may problema, binigay ho namin.
Okay, pero linawin ko lang po ha. Hindi nangangahulugan na pag ikaw ay domestic airline, ikaw ay Cebu Pacific, ikaw ay ililipat na sa Clark.
Hindi po. Siguro nagkaroon lang po ng misunderstanding.
Dahil sa rhetoric ng iba, no? Pero what I'm saying is Clark in itself is a wonderful opportunity for expansion, but even the government has mentioned that we still have to broaden the study and also the plans for Clark. So hindi pa talaga ready dahil sa dami rin ng ating mga domestic flights, correct? Pati yung connectivity mula Clark papunta ng Metro Manila, alalahanin po natin na oo, maganda nga na maaliwalas at komportable, pero ang maapekto ng domestic flights ay tayo mga Pilipino na usually mga middle class na talagang bumabiyahe dito sa atin. So para sinasabi ba natin, dahil international ka, you get priority at domestic ka papabayaan. Yan ang hindi makatao, no? Now, kasi domestic ka, you're expendable, pwede kang ilipat. Hindi pwedeng ganun kasi nagulat din ako na meron kayo kagad na ultimatum 45 days. Why are you compelled to follow the 45 days?
Unang-una po, iklaro ko lang po ito. Nagkaroon po ng pag-uusap sa initial congressional hearing. I think, I hope, I'm sure Congressman Sarmiento was there. Ganito po yung pagkakaintindi ko po. Meron po kasing nasabi, Cebu Pacific said that there will be some flights that may not be, according to them, that may not be accommodated here in Manila. So the reaction of the speaker, if you cannot stay or you cannot be accommodated as what you said, you can transfer to Clark. But it was not a mandate that you transfer to Clark. Ang sabi lang, sumagot lang po si speaker, if I recall it right, I don't know if that's a correct statement, Congressman Sarmiento, that ang sabi nyo, kung hindi, sa tingin nyo hindi magkakasya, dilipat nyo yung iba sa Clark. Yun po ang sabi.
Okay.
So it was not a direct
So
order.
malinaw, maybe we can just ask eventually for that clarification. But my point is, again, kami nasa legislative. Okay? So we're trying to do our function of oversight to see what's the most equitable, what's the most efficient. But we can only base it on a study. Hindi pwedeng basta lang, di ba? Okay, so now I would like to hear from Cebu Pacific. Explain your side or for any domestic airline, this proposal now of rationalizing it and moving you around in certain terminals. Why do you have a hesitation towards that, Cebu Pacific, compared to the others? Please explain.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Actually, first of all, we're quite grateful that the initial 45-day mandate was extended to 6 months. We truly believe that 45 days was quite tight. And certainly we commit to work cooperatively with the government, with the administration, with NAIA, in order for us to try and achieve this deadline. I guess all that we're asking for is, can the process be dynamic and consultative, no? So we can actually achieve yung timeline. Actually, our common goal is really for safe, efficient, and comfortable passenger experience for all. I think some of our hesitations really is, we've had experience, for example, to move into Changi. So currently we moved into the new Changi Terminal 4, and we fly there, I think, from various places in the Philippines, maybe 6 to 7 times a day. So from Cebu, from Manila. So we had to move all of our operations in Singapore, from Terminal 2 to Terminal 4. And that's around maybe 8 flights a day. We are talking about 320 flights for our Manila base.
How long did it take you to be able to comply with the move in Changi? I mean, of course, I would say that they're probably more efficient in your relocation there.
I think Terminal 4, when we moved into it, was empty. So that actually made it easier. Logistically, probably... Well, the actual move was around 12 months. The actual plan of Changi was around 3 years. Ma'am, because it's not just Cebu Pacific, they also had asked Cathay Pacific to move over and some other carriers to move over. So I guess what we're just saying is, certainly we will do everything we can in order to comply with the administration's requirements. But of course, realistically, we just want to make sure we work together para seamless yung transition.
Chair, ang tanong is, ano yung realistic na timeline for you to be able to comply? Kasi I suppose, were it not for the prodding of Speaker Alvarez, hindi naman siguro kayo mabibigyan din ng 45-day deadline, di ba? Tama ba yan, GM? Let's be practical about this. So, ano yung realistic na period na kailangan ninyo? And is it viable in the first place?
Through the chair, we had mentioned yesterday in the House hearing, we would need at least 1 year. We also had some reservations, like for example, the best practice was in the world today. I mentioned it yesterday. In for example, all of the United Kingdom, all of Canada, both domestic and international are under one terminal. Para mas seamless po yung connection. Yes, some parts, for example, in some airports in Japan are moving in that direction. Some airports in Australia are also moving in that direction. So you can just imagine. So for example, if we're competing really for tourists, an Australian who wanted to go to, say, Boracay, can do that seamlessly today. Get on a flight, arrive in Terminal 3, then same terminal transfer. So I think one of our concerns really is in terms of the connectivity. Kasi ngayon po, wala naman pong connector sa loob ng airport eh. Wala naman pong mobile connection inside the airport.
Pero kahit na maghintay ka ng 1 year, yung connectivity problema pa rin yan. Kasi, di ba, fragmented yung mano. But, give me a compelling reason why you think a year is more reasonable. I think naman, if we can justify it, why not? I mean, the House have been generous with their assessment. They said, okay, 6 months. But, you know, the Senate can be even more generous. If it is for the benefit of the riding public, then let's make it a year. But, let me ask you point blank, with the proposal of NAIA, is it actually feasible to be able to move to those terminals? Would you be able to accommodate all of the flights that you already have if you are moved to Terminal 2 and 4? Or will it hamper your operations to the detriment of the riding public?
I guess, ma'am, to answer your first question, normally hub moves are done within a 2 to 3 year planning horizon. What are we looking for? What would airlines look for? Check-in facilities, IT connectivity, crew briefing rooms, customs and immigration facilities, baggage sorting, passenger information, public notification, so on and so forth, because it is quite a move. No? In fact, what we've seen in Heathrow is nung they moved into Terminal 5, medyo nagkagulo yung pagka-move over. No? Ma'am, I'm sorry, I missed your second question.
Wala na, nakalimutan ko na. Okay, so my second question is, will it really be a problem if you move? Is it really doable to be able to be absorbed in those Terminal 2 and 4? Or is the structure not designed really to accommodate the domestic airlines?
Ma'am, I think
Senator Lacson will
I'd just like to echo, no? Kasi, okay, yung deadline, yung timeline, movable yun eh. Pwede pag-usapan. Pero once you have transferred, ang tanong ni Chairperson, ano yung feasibility na maglalas kayo doon? Sabi mo nga, problema yung connection. So,
through the chair, I think first thing is we have been provided assurances that we will see the plan of the authority kung paano gagalaw, no? Ano yung Gantt chart niya. Pangalawa po, sorry. When we look at, I think Cebu Pacific carried around 10 million domestic passengers last year in Manila. I think Philippine Airlines and PAL Express combined, our estimates lang po, is around 6 million. And the domestic Terminal 2 capacity is around 9 million.
So, ilan ang pasahero nyo on connecting flights? Say, in 2017?
Approximately,
Regardless kung foreign or domestic travelers? Or regardless kung Filipino o foreigner?
I think based on our estimates, probably around 10% of our total traffic connects either onto other domestic or other international sectors.
And yung SLEX and LEX connector, matatapos ito 2025, hindi ba? So without that, I suppose nightmare yan. Kasi kung dadaan ka sa EDSA, you will lose at least 4 hours.
I think, Mr. Chairman, through the chair, I think what we're just really worried about is yung passenger connectivity. If he's going from a domestic point to an international point, I think if you look at all of the other hubs throughout the region, say Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, Hong Kong, and other domestic points, no? I think Bangkok, the connectivity is actually more seamless. In fact, maybe as an example po, I was with the Australian ambassador the other day because we had launched Melbourne. We were talking about connectivity, and then we talked about yung Sydney Airport. Yung Sydney Airport po, magkahiwalay ang international terminal at saka yung domestic terminal. So ang comment niya sa akin, rather than her taking Qantas, kasi makakalipad siya from Sydney, Manila, from Manila to Sydney, and dapat ideally kung nasa isang terminal, Sydney to Canberra, ngayon lilipat pa siya sa ibang terminal. It will take her, I think the cost of a bus there is around 10 Australian dollars. But again, and then we see in Singapore, for example, it's all interconnected.
Can you repeat again? Can you repeat? If you are moved to the domestic terminal 2 and 4, ilan ang magiging overcapacity? Because right now, where you are, ano yung overcapacity? Nasaan kayo ngayon? Anong terminal ulit? Just for the record. Terminal 3?
Ma'am, the Cebu Pacific Group operates in both Terminals 3 and Terminal 4. Our
Okay.
SEBGO operation, which is the turboprop operation, operates solely in Terminal 4. And all of our jets, which is the Cebu Pacific Group, Cebu Pacific operates in Terminal 3.
Okay. So now, if you are moved and restricted to 2 and 4 only, ano yung capacity ba ng 2 and 4? Baka kasya naman kayo dyan. Kasya ba? Kasi dito sa 3 and 4, obviously may overcapacity na rin yan. But, am I safe to assume that Terminal 3 and 4 is bigger?
I think Terminal 3, ma'am, is really the largest one.
Okay. So if you're moved to 2 and 4, what would be the spillover? How many?
To clarify, yung T4 po is according to the plan that we've seen is status quo. So wala naman pong mangyayari.
Pero yung sa 2?
Yung sa Terminal 2 po, we believe if you combine ourselves, Cebu Pacific na jets, Philippine Airlines, and PAL Express, the total will be approximately 16.6 million.
And the capacity of 2 is?
The rated domestic capacity of Terminal 2 is supposedly 9 million.
See, okay. So in short, okay, the problem is decongestion. You're going to be moved to another terminal that will obviously be also congested for you to be moved there. Diba? So parang nag-merry-go-round lang, pero may roadblocks pa rin. Meron pa rin gridlock in both. Am I correct?
Madam Chair, as you've stated, the entire complex is actually overcapacity.
Okay. So, but right now, kung may 9 million capacity dun sa 16.6 na kayo, ano ba yung capacity ng Terminal 3?
Terminal 3 is around 13 million.
13?
13 po.
So,
13 million yung design capacity for pure international operations.
Okay. Can we have the opinion of Philippines Air Asia? This is a domestic carrier as well, right? What do you feel about this proposal?
Your Honor, actually, Philippines Air Asia is operating both in Terminal 3 for international, and all our domestic flights are from Terminal 4. So this new endeavor will not affect us anymore.
Okay, let me ask for the opinion of Mr. Mison, Philippine Airlines. Based on your experience, sir, is this study feasible? Is this something that you would have recommended?
Madam Chair, on the part of Philippine Airlines, we will always support the initiatives of government in terms of decongesting the airport. And in fact, we already moved all of our turboprop operations from NAIA to Clark. So on the part of the PAL group, we don't operate any turboprop planes already from NAIA. As of the moment right now, the PAL group operates in the 3 terminals. Terminals 1, international and domestic. Terminal 2, also international and domestic. And Terminal 3 for our domestic flights. So having this kind of an initiative will certainly help Philippine Airlines in a sense that instead of operating in 3 terminals, we will be operating in just 2 terminals, ma'am.
You agree with it? Hindi dahil okay lang kayo sa government, ha? No. I mean, because there's a difference. The point is that the passengers will not suffer. Okay. So, with this proposal, you think it's doable?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Maybe do we have a passengers association or travel groups here? Do we have a travel association of the Philippines? Mr. Dueñas? Miss Dueñas. Ma'am.
The Board of Airline Representatives, and we are comprised of 36 airlines, mostly foreign carriers. We express support for government's plan on airport rationalization as long as it is consistent with the standard of international travel and travel experience. However, as stated earlier, we also respectfully request that the airlines be given at least 6 months to carry out the plan for reasons of customer experience, safety, and security. But if there's a move to extend that even beyond the 6 months, we would welcome it very much.
Maybe, sir, you were about to say something, Mr. David?
Senator Po, I'm Sam David with the International Air Transport Association. We represent about over 280 airlines around the world. Roughly 83% of the world's commercial air traffic. Among the members are members of the Board of Airline Representatives. As IATA, we don't have too much detail into the moves as far as the mechanics, no? But so we cannot really speak into it. But just sounding off from the Board of Airline Representatives, there is a general, with respect to notwithstanding Cebu Pacific's position, there is a general feeling that the move is going to be received by the foreign carriers and have agreed on 6 months, possibly more, if ever that would be beneficial. And I say that on several grounds. There is a position paper that I will submit, which I already submitted to the House Committee on Transportation yesterday. It talks about the need for consultation. And with due respect to the MIA, yes, consultation has taken place, but to a certain extent only. If not, we would probably not be having this conversation, and there would be general concurrence on what the best plan is for NAIA moving forward. Airline relocation is such a complex issue that consultation is absolutely necessary to involve all airlines, and hopefully there will be general consensus. A couple of points also. Ideally, split operations should be avoided whenever possible, I think for the reasons that Cebu Pacific mentioned. Secondly, if airlines do have to move, albeit reluctantly, then we also submit that airports would fund the move on a like-to-like basis. Not maybe just outright spend for facilities improvement, but maybe for some, maybe deferral or some kind of cost recovery mechanism. Airlines operate in terminals, just understanding that there was a move not too long ago, and having to move again does undertake some level of expense also. So we would call on MIA maybe to help defray some of that expense. And finally, as we talk about this big goals, no, of airline relocation also, maybe we can also look into how we can even improve the capacity right now. Sure, there is congestion, we all know that. Congestion at the terminals, congestion at the runway. In speaking about congestion at the runway, the CAB, CAAP, and NAIA are doing the right thing about moving forward with guidelines on proper slot coordination. We would only advise that there are global standards for slot coordination that are truly independent. There is a slot coordinator based out of Australia. We urge that the ability for the slot coordinator to operate as mandated, contracted, for him to do so is independent. And secondly, when it comes to terminal operations, we invited the concerned agencies and the airlines to a March 13 workshop. I'm happy to report that NAIA, CAB, and CAP will be there. It's really a workshop to talk about how to improve terminal capacity through a level of service. It's an assessment tool. My definition of terminal congestion are the long lines, immigrations, customs, maybe the check-in counter, and all that. Now, there are assessment tools that hopefully we can share as IATA. It's free. At the March 13 workshop. These are global standards that are adopted by airports worldwide. So in closing, I'd like to just respectfully submit our position paper on the need for consultation. That's how we began my presentation.
Thank you for bringing that up. Actually, with due respect, GM, when the 45-day deadline was mentioned, even I was a little bit surprised and confused because number one, if you have a plan to move an airline, if you have that intention, you should actually have the plan, right? Okay, this will be where the I don't know. This is where the areas will be to process this and that. I mean, you don't just tell them move. You actually have to have a blueprint of where they will situate themselves, how the gates will be, and all of that. Are we ready with that? Because we appreciate that you're quite obedient to our suggestions in the legislative branch, but I don't think we are experts, even if we've had, and I'd say this, there are others who've had the opportunity to work in your industry, but we are already the legislative branch, okay? You should actually have the authority to be able to decide based on a legitimate study, based on what's good for the stakeholders and the passengers, not because we are compelling you to do so, unless to agree to just any arbitrary date. So when I say, okay, granted we all dragged our feet on this, you started July, but until now, the study has not been presented. But now that it's becoming a reality, because they've already been given an ultimatum, perhaps it's not too much to ask to have more consultations, not because we just want to chat, but we just want to make sure that you have an actual blueprint of how the time in motion will be, how it's going to be done. 1 year is a long time, but congestion is still there. Let's at least do it properly. And then remember, there are also proposals now for a NAIA expansion, which we can take up later on when the proposal is much better. But for now, sir, would we look at the possibility of perhaps extending it more than 6 months? Because ang dami ninyong kailangan gawin, ha? Hindi lamang yung moving na yan right now. And who knows, within this time being, with the suggestion that we get slot coordinators, experts in that, it's just really that. Well, okay, so your opinion, sir.
Ma'am, thank you very much for the opportunity to probably reply to Sam David. I think Mr. David is not aware that we have consulted the airlines sometime last year, June of last year. However, the consultation was held in abeyance because Cebu Pacific manifested that they need a third party to study. So I said, fine, so that all the concerns of all the airlines will be addressed. Okay. The 6 months wasn't really initially came from me. It was the position of the foreign carriers together with other local carriers that 6 months is a worthy sort of timetable. However, Cebu Pacific said that they needed 1 year. In the hearing yesterday, I manifested that we cannot do this in a phase-in because all the terminals are already utilized. We're planned to do a switch-off, switch-on changes. However, if Philippine Airlines, or the rest of the carriers has 6 months and Cebu Pacific has 1 year, we can't really do something about it. It has to blend. 1 year or 6 months or 8 months, but we move all together. Ganun po ang trust namin. But, with my apologies to Cebu Pacific, and let me just state this, as an ordinary person, as an ordinary Filipino, I agree with that they're saying that airports, domestic, international, must be host in one roof. I think that's wrong. It must be co-located because you cannot use an international terminal for a domestic operation. The trend nowadays is basically they are co-located so that the transfer between domestic and international is short and brief. We have such thing as MCT, the minimum connecting time for any port for that matter. For Manila, on record, I think if the reservations can bear me out this, may minimum connecting time po ang ating paliparan kasi they are separately located. As far as I could recall, ang minimum connecting time, the minimum connecting time for Manila is 4 hours. Considering that when you, especially from international, you arrive, you pass through customs, immigration, quarantine, and then you're considered landed to Manila. So if you go to terminal for domestic, you have to do by land because you're considered landed already. Secondly, pasensya na Cebu Pacific. This co-location in one terminal will definitely benefit only Cebu Pacific because they operate international and domestic. Mas malaki po ang advantage ng Cebu Pacific kung they are working under one roof. Separating two terminals operations, definitely may tama ho yun there will be some ins in terms of the aircraft rotation. They cannot probably sustain what we have right now. So, yun po ang, I think, ang punto dapat natin malaman na the airport is for everybody. It's not only for one particular advantage. Para po lahat magkasama-sama at maayos po ang papatupad. So it's basically, I think, the co-location of Terminal 3 to Cebu Pacific is basically, to some point, advantageous po sa kanila. We will not deny that because passengers connecting from international, either foreign or Cebu Pacific, can easily move to domestic, and it's an advantage. Okay. However, if we streamline, the reason why we would like to streamline the usage of the terminal is basically to have an equal opportunity to all. That walang advantage sa Philippine Airlines, walang advantage sa Cebu Pacific. That's where we're coming from. But the congestion, I'll just state it on record, that there might still be congestion, especially during peak hours. In any airports in the world, there is always a congestion, depending on the time of the day, because of the frequency of the flights that are operating. Meron po tayong off-peak and peak. Depende yun. Kasi ang airline so operates, depends on their destination, in terms of the timings, in terms of their connectivity in other ports. So they really have to synchronize the schedule. So at a certain window, they will operate at the most convenient time for them to connect their flight to another destination.
No, I know that that's your expertise. Exactly, that's why we're asking you to explain. We want fair advantage for everyone, not fair disadvantage. Okay. Now, I know that congestion is not just caused by the airlines. For example, the lack of immigration of officials. Kasi nga, mababa talaga yung sweldo nila na nakakausap po sa kanila with their allowance, with their parking, with their food. It's not really enticing to be working in government, especially if you're young and you have other opportunities. So, this is also the problem with some of the airlines. For example, ako, may flight ko alas 5 ng hapon. Nyari, no? Siyempre ako balikbayan, kunwari, or ako yung OFW. nandito ako sa Metro Manila, magche-check-in ako ng alas 8 ng umaga. Tapos, magmo-mall muna ako, tapos babalik ako 2 hours before my flight. Nakasabay ko na ngayon yung mga talagang aalis na ng ano. So, wala tayong rules na you can check in only, let's say, 3 hours before or 4 hours before. Because your congestion now is in the government side. Because everybody, the influx, so it's not just airlines. This is also within your discretion. You can tell the airlines, when you check in, maybe this is the time frame. So they come in for immigration. This is naman mostly for international. That's also one of the reasons why I think there's such a delay. Pag papasok ka, ang pila sa immigration, napakahaba. Yun din ang nagiging problema. Hindi lamang dito. Do you agree, Jan?
I agree in a way that your observation is correct. But coming up with an instruction that airlines or passengers can only come in at a certain time would be difficult. One is because we're now in the computer age. Any passenger can come in online. Pwede po sila mag-check in ahead of time. We normally require passengers to come in at least 2.5 hours before departure. That's basically our pretty standard. But as to how and when they will come, medyo it's quite difficult. But I guess what you mentioned about the immigration money, I agree, ma'am. There are many times and occasions that we don't get enough heads, meaning warm bodies, to man our counters. And we've been asking immigration, and they're trying to slowly coping with the demand of our requirements.
You know, in this age of everything is computerized, it might actually be easy to monitor. Let's say you're color-coded for your boarding pass, meaning this orange, you come in at this time. No, I'm not saying, because in fact, as a passenger, I'd like to have the option to check in very early and probably just come back. If I'm thinking of the passengers, it's convenient to check in anytime you want within the day of your flight. But on the other hand, pending the expansion programs that is not yet implemented, then maybe this is another recourse that we can look at temporarily. Okay. Because we still have other hearings, so I'd like to ask Senator Lacson if he has.
Thank you. Maybe what the point that you're trying to drive at is congestion is a given, pero there must be some formula na pwede tayo mag-improvise to minimize congestion. Ito na nga yung ibang mga suggestions ni Chairperson na baka any time of the day or any time before your flight, pwede ka mag-check-in, umalis. That would contribute somehow sa decongestion. And probably yung distribution din ng mga airlines sa terminal kasama factor in din. And also yung implication, yung economic implication of congestion, not only on the airlines but on the passengers as well. And the entire country, kasi may economic may impact din yan di ba? So, meron ba kayong ganung formula na continuing study wherein dahil masikip na nga, baka pwedeng ma-minimize lang natin yung pagsisikip. Maraming factors na pwedeng mag-come into play.
One factor probably is, which also has a negative or a negative effect, is nowadays airlines has bigger capacity, but the congestion in terms of parking is still the same. Meaning the allocation is still the same. Technically, numerically, we can accommodate. However, their schedules in the past were just using turboprop, maybe 100 capacity. Now, that particular airport has been upgraded. They can now bring in Airbus 320, which is about 170, 80. One aircraft now, the capacity, sir, lumaki po. So, yun ang major challenge. But we cannot say, and tell them also na don't use wide body because it's part of the business. It's part of tourism. But definitely, the size, the mere sheer size of our terminal is already technically over the capacity. But at the end of the day, we're still happy that we're able to cater 42 million. Either as to what time, when they come in, we don't know. But at least we were able to maximize the resources up to 42 million.
Ang isang narinig kong reklamo ni Speaker Alvarez, ayaw gumamit ng Cebu Pacific ng tube. Bakit ba nagtitipid kayo raw sa tube?
Hindi ba mas mahal nga gumamit ng bus kaysa dun sa tube? At saka isn't that the responsibility of the airport to have more tubes? Okay. So, sir, kayo na muna. Bakit nga ayaw gamitin ng Cebu Pacific?
I'm not sure whether that is a current observation or before. I myself before I've seen that flights coming in. I will not name which airline. That there are instances that they don't use the tube. That can be explained in the following. One, if they're using a turboprop, small, yung may propeller po, yung nadala dati sa Boracay or what, mababa po yun. So if we overextend the jet bridge, it will exceed the limit of the jet bridge. So there is a chance that we will not use that and then retract it, let the passenger go down to the tube, and then take the stairs for the aircraft. May limitation po yun. Meron naman pong pangyayari, and there are also some instances wherein an airline arrives international for their convenience in terms of their schedules. They will use that for a domestic outbound. Hindi na po nila tinutow ang eroplano sa domestic. So there's a perception from the passenger when they're being boarded through the bus. Nakikita po nila, they're seeing the jet bridge idle. So they have this perception na, hey, you're not using the bridge even it's free or available. So meron, I guess it's more on explanation and letting the passenger know how the airline operates or the airport operates. So, and they are very compliant naman. In fairness to Cebu Pacific, they are using the bridge now. Kasi pagkasabi ko sa kanila, if you don't use the bridge, ako na kaaway nyo.
So, walang basis yung reklamo ni Speaker Alvarez?
Baka po sa ibang, I'm not sure kung saan.
Case to case?
Baka po, hindi ko po alam.
Okay, so at least that's a lesson also, the feedback for Cebu Pacific and all the other airlines. As passengers, we would rather use the tube, especially for the elderly. Napakahirap, nakasubsob ka, bumababa sa hagdan. Pero naiintindihan din natin, sa ibang bansa po ba, GM Monreal, pag ikaw ay mga turboprop, kaya ng kanilang mga bridge yon, mga ganong aeroplano?
Ma'am, based on my observation, there's no such thing as airport that can accommodate all the aircraft parked in a bridge kasi that will demand a huge building.
Hindi, pero sir, yung mga turboprop, meron bang bridge na kayang bumaba, mag-extend ng ganon?
Parang wala na po, ma'am, siguro.
Wala.
For turboprop, po. And karamihan naman po, and there are many occasions wherein even international flights are parked remotely. Hong Kong, kahit malaki na po ang Hong Kong, there's still occasions that your aircraft will be parked. Bibihira po. Pero meron po yung mga low-cost carriers are parked somewhere na hindi they're not using the jet bridges.
Cebu Pacific, would you like to comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Truthfully, to be fair, and to credit really GM Monreal, and under the Duterte administration, the aero bridges have been fixed. There are operators already manning the kasi dati po either sira yung aero bridge or walang operator. Pero ngayon po, it's really compliant. I'm just speaking as a turboprop operator. Wala po talagang aero bridge na didikit doon kasi 3 steps lang bago ka makarating sa aeroplano. Hindi siya ganun kataas. Actually, mas mababa po yung turboprop. So it's just a few steps going up.
Okay.
And lastly, excuse me, we do confirm from our analysis that it is not a matter of cost savings because really using the bus for us is more expensive than using the tube.
GM?
No, I'm just basing my reaction on their position paper. They said that per hour they pay 495 or 400 something per hour per bus. Okay, as opposed to bridge is 1,500 per hour, or fraction thereof also. My only point of disagreement here is, they claim that they need 5 buses for an hour boarding. You don't board the aircraft in an hour. Kasi pag binord mo na isang oras po ang isang aeroplano, you're delayed already. So in terms of computation, mas mura pa rin po siguro ang bridge. But I'm not saying that they're not using the bridge, but I just want to dispel that kind of argument.
Before it skips me again, Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, may I suggest that we allow Congressman Sarmiento to participate?
Sawang-sawa na si Cong Sarmiento eh. Sir.
Yeah, we conducted 2 hearings already about this. And if I recall, the one that triggered the calling of the airlines and the regulator is my resolution with the end view of providing a safe, comfortable, and convenient air travel experience for our passengers. And of course, alam naman ng lahat yung problem of congestion in NAIA, because as pointed out by the chairperson, it has already reached its capacity. Now, during the first hearing, lumabas po yung 45 days na compliance. And before we adjourned, I asked the airlines and the regulator to submit their position papers on how are they going to carry out the 45-day period. And immediately, the NAIA called for a meeting of all the stakeholders, and they were able to submit their respective position papers. The Bureau of Airline Representative, Philippine Airlines, and 1 foreign airlines submitted their position papers, and they were in agreement that 45-day will not be able, is too tough. So they asked for a 6-month period for compliance, except for Cebu Pacific, which submitted a very long position paper and raised their concerns. Now, in our last hearing yesterday, it was agreed that 6 months would be a reasonable period for them to be able to comply. And before we parted, there is a such thing as ORAT. I forgot the O. Operational Readiness Airport Transfer. So, which is a prerequisite for a successful assignment of terminals, wherein we asked specifically the regulator to specifically indicate the timelines for every period, what are they going to accomplish. If in the process of meeting coordination with the various stakeholders, and they feel that they're able to do it, so good. But if they're not able to do it, just submit to us the reasonable timeline. So, yun po ang what happened, what transpired in the House of Representatives.
Thank you, Congressman Sarmiento. Before we adjourn this hearing, there are a few concerns. No? Yesterday, Cebu Pacific said it has at least 250 million in terminal fees that have yet to be claimed by passengers due to canceled flights. To the airlines present today, magkanong terminal fees na hindi pa naibibigay, at sino ba ang responsable dito para ito'y maibalik sa ating mga pasahero? Who can answer that? Is it kayo po, GM, o yung airline mismo? Sa inyo ba? Kanino ba yung mga terminal fees? Di ba sa inyo yon?
Those which are remitted to us, it's ours. But what question right now, I guess, is those unrefunded, Madam Chairman, na yung pong nakolekta nila, pero yung pasahero hindi umalis for some reason, or they availed those tickets with all the restrictions, so hindi na po naibigay sa pasahero. So yun po, nasa airlines, and those are being kept by the airlines. We just don't know the numbers and the amount.
What are your efforts to return it?
Ma'am, can when reading the news clips, it is quite worrisome. But let me just clarify now. What we reported in the House yesterday was we have collected on behalf of the authority, as far as the Cebu Pacific group is concerned, is around 9.241 billion. We have remitted 8.647 billion. So may balance pa po na 594 million. Out of the 594 million, we have refunded around 344 million. So we refunded 344 million to passengers. We are still holding in for the passengers around 250 million. So let me just say unequivocally say all the PSEs we collected are accounted for. There is no exception. No? We have collected this on behalf of the government. We have always been clear on that. This is not our money. We have around 250 million left, as I previously mentioned, and these are collected from unflown tickets po.
From what?
Unflown. So hindi po nagamit yung whether or not regular ang ticket or promo ang ticket, basta hindi niya nagamit, pwede niya po i-refund. I guess one of the limitations po is when people buy tickets, it's through many means. For example, kung sa web, via credit card, mas madali namin ibalik yon upon request. Yung iba po, dumadaan po sa travel agent, yung iba naman po, nagbabayad po ng cash. So hindi rin namin alam kung kanino siya may ibabalik. No? Ngunit, however, if the government says we should turn this over now, we can comply. I think we just need to study yung memorandum of agreement because when the authority and the airline came together, the objective was really to make the passenger experience more seamless. Para hindi na siya pumila sa counter para lang magbayad ng terminal fee. In fact, if you travel internationally, wala naman kayong nakikita na nangongolekta na ng terminal fee kasi nakabuild in naman siya sa ticket. So international best practice po siya.
Yes, no, I agree. But with that money, and it's good that you're holding it because at least the private sector has that accountability to the government for every peso that you hold for them. If the government handles it, sometimes it might be a problem. Not because of you, sir. I mean, I'm just saying, government in general, it's a little bit more complicated. So. Maybe moving forward now because that's another issue. Yung ILS po, okay na ba? Nagagamit na? Very briefly, because this is really not the topic now, but how is it, sir?
To the chairman, you're referring to the ILS of runway 24 for Manila?
For whatever you utilize it for. It's supposed to make the flights more efficient.
More efficient. That was one of our priority projects, and it was done within 6 months.
That's why your takeoff and landings are...
It's more efficient now, regardless of where you come from.
Okay, thank you. That's all. I think...
Madam Chair, very important. Regarding the terminal fee, ang concern po kasi, yung 250 million, while being unclaimed and not refunded, natutulog sa bangko. Of course, it's earning interest. So, yun ang issue po. So, probably, may problema po ang airlines because what is indicated in the memorandum, it's silent in the memorandum of agreement. So there's really a need to amend the immediate.
I know there should be an escrow. If the government cannot handle it, there should be an escrow where it can be deposited, but with the accountability of both the private and public sectors. Kasi, di ba, mahirap kasi I'm sorry, okay, but we have a lot to do in government, and I sometimes don't trust ourselves. So it's better that there's monitoring also from the private sector because they're the collectors, they're the ones that get it on behalf of the passengers, and they're supposed to return it. So, but at least the government, from that escrow, if it's interest-bearing, the money can go to the government for the operations of the airport. Okay, may ganon? Okay, Pal, magkano yung nakolekta ninyo na hindi pa ninyo na hahanapan ng pagsusulian?
I'm sorry, Madam Honor, I don't have that figures right now. I already committed to Congressman Sarmiento that we will submit that figure as soon as we obtain it. But similar to what Cebu Pacific has been doing, we've been refunding it at the request of our passengers. And in our case, we don't recognize it as our revenue. We keep it in a trust fund, Your Honor.
Before we close, there are a few things that I would like addressed here. I am for outward development. Okay, I believe that Clark is not just a potential; it's already there. We just have to be able to utilize it properly. But the reality is, it's not ready. to be able to connect, which is almost 100 kilometers away for our passengers. There's a proposal of a high-speed train and many other different modes of transportations for connectivity, but it's still not there. And it's not fair for our OFWs or for our general traveling public, the ones that can afford lower-cost carriers, to be inconvenienced for the sake of, let's say, international carriers alone. Okay? So we're clear about that. But let me also stress the importance of improving our airports. For example, the Philippines now, we're saying that we're making 11 billion ba in tourists? 11% increase, and we're making about $8 billion a year on tourist arrivals in the country. Thailand is making about 48 billion, maybe more, dollars a year. If we combine our BPO earnings and also our OFW earnings, it will just be a little more than the tourist earnings of Thailand. But the Philippines has such great potential. We even speak English. We are probably more hospitable. So there's no reason why we cannot compete with them and even earn more. But unfortunately, because of the gateway to the country, which is the airport, that's where we're probably having this less competitiveness compared to our neighbors. And also infrastructure and many other things. But definitely the airport is a start. So GM Monreal, we appreciate that you've been very receptive also to the suggestions of the legislative branch. But I feel that the responsibility of actually showing a more solid plan from the government side on how this will be seamlessly done, the transfer. Because I know Cebu Pacific, your issue is also transferring your airlines your airplanes from one terminal to another. That will cause the problem. Thank you for the generosity of the understanding, making it 6 months. But I personally think it's still a little premature. I mean, if maybe you can have more consultations and say maybe 2 months can even make a difference, another 2 months. But definitely, it's nice to have a deadline, but a deadline that will really be justified and it won't spell out more problems for us. So if the lower house had been generous with 6 months, our recommendation would be, our focus would be more on the expansion of NAIA, more than actually relocating these now, which is for me a band-aid fix. So maybe later on, sir, I will present ourselves to be part of your study, getting this consortium. There's been a lot of proposals, di ba? Pag-aralan natin yung consortium at kung ano pang mga unsolicited bids that we can probably have a better airport. Alam nyo, nanggaling ako sa Cebu last week. I saw the terminal that's about to be finished by GMR Megawide, and it will accommodate more passengers. From the outside, it looks like, within international standards, even better. Pag meron ng ganun sa Cebu, baka naman pwede na dito. And the private sector can really help. Mas mabilis silang magtrabaho kaysa sa atin eh. But we have to make sure lang na if we give it to them, we will not overcharge our passengers. There's a limit to how much they can charge, di ba? Di ba, sir? And maybe the time frame of their operation agreement with the government. Hindi naman pwedeng napakahaba. But definitely, let's explore that alongside we're exploring these other quick fixes that we are doing. So again, let me reiterate that based on our findings now, there should be more consultation. Because sa ating mga kababayan, ang maapektuhan din dito yung general riding public na mga sa low-cost carriers. And number two, ilipat man sa ibang terminal, congested pa rin. Okay, so we have to look at the other. So if we can work on 6 months, great. But if not, this particular, the Senate in particular, will go for the time frame that is practical, that will yield better, more studied results, and that will spell out safety for our passengers. That's the time frame that I need. So this meeting is now adjourned for this particular concern. We will now continue on with our next hearing.
Good morning. Our second issue to be tackled is House Bill number 725, prohibiting collection of fees from passengers or LTO facilities.
Sige, mag-umpisa na tayo para matapos tayo na 30 minutes. Unahin na natin yung sa'yo. Sige. So, okay, we resume. House Bill number 725. This representation, Senate Bill number 1695, seeking to improve the status of our land transportation terminals, stop stations, and rest areas. And we thank, of course, our counterpart in the lower house for initiating this also. We have a total of more than 80 provinces in the Philippines, and according to the DPWH, the Philippines in 2014 has a total of 32,526.5 kilometers, comprising its national road network. Wala pa po dyan ang iba't ibang pagsanga-sanga, papasok at paglabas sa mga probinsyang malalayo sa national roads. Sa Metro Manila pa lamang ay napakarami na pong terminal ng provincial buses. Nariyan ang baliwag na biyaheng Manila to Bulacan, Nueva Ecija, nariyan ang Bataan Transit, Dagupan Bus, ang Solid North Partas, Farinas, Dominion, Viron, Florida na biyaheng Norte, nariyan din ang Genesis, Jack at Jam liners. Kung aakyat ka ng Baguio, ikaw ay babiyahe lulan ng bus na higit kumulang 5 hanggang 6 na oras, depende sa traffic at oras ng biyahe. Kung nais mong mag-surfing sa La Union, ay aabutin ka rin ng mga 6 hanggang 7 oras sa bus. Along the tens of thousands of kilometers of lengthy roads all around the country, bus terminals, rest areas, canteens, restrooms have become necessary and sort of an oasis for our travelers using land transportation. Naging negosyo na rin ang mga ito at lumaki na sa isang masasabing industriya. Ang mga comfort rooms sa mga pit stops na ito ay naniningil depende sa serbisyo. Today, we will look into these simple things that we could improve upang mapaganda naman ang traveling experience ng mga kababayan natin bumabiyahe sa iba't ibang probinsya. We will seek to ensure sanitation and cleanliness and the provision for free Wi-Fi internet in these terminals and rest areas upang bigyang ginhawa ang ating mga pasahero. Importante po ito, lalo-lalo na sa mga nanay rin, no? Pag nagbabiyahe kasama yung mga bata, ang hirap pag yung mga tinitigilan natin ay walang pasilidad para i-accommodate ito. At our intention also to become a premier tourist destination. It is imperative that we have these safe, clean, and strategically located stops. And so this hearing is quite relevant today. I would like to acknowledge, of course, the presence of my counterpart, the chair of the Committee on Transportation in Congress, Congressman Sarmiento. Thank you, sir. And I will, before I introduce our additional resource speakers, perhaps the Congressman would like an opening statement, sir.
Yeah, I'm here to strongly support the bill filed by our late colleague, House Bill 725. So thank you very much, Madam Chair. So this particular bill was filed by the late Representative Maximo Dalog in the 16th Congress It was acted upon favorably by the House, but because of lack of material time, this did not become a law. So in the 17th Congress, again, this being the advocacy of Representative Dalog, who, by the way, passed away last June 2017. So he filed it, and this has passed again on third reading, and that's the reason why this particular bill is now for consideration by our counterpart. The objective of which is to stop the collection of fees from passengers for the use of comfort rooms and service facilities in bus terminals, bus stations, bus stops, and rest areas. Representative Dalog must have realized, representing the Lone District of Mountain Province, the hostile effect of requiring passengers to pay for a particular fee before being allowed to use the sanitary facilities, which undoubtedly is an added expense on the part of the riding public. Section 15, Article 2 of the Philippine Constitution states that the state shall protect and promote the right to health of the people and instill health consciousness among them. Therefore, the right of every establishment to a fair return of investment carries with it a corresponding social responsibility to provide adequate facilities for the comfort of its clientele. In addition, PD 856, otherwise known as the Code of Sanitation, states as one of its bases the need of providing for an adequate number of rest areas for passengers of public and private conveyances plying the highways to cater to the comfort and personal convenience and needs of travelers. The maintenance of these comfort rooms and service facilities is part of the services for human care of common carriers. Thus, additional payment for maintenance of these facilities should not be imposed on the riding public. In addition, collection of fees for the use of comfort rooms and service facilities is an added burden to riding public, hence making travel within the country more expensive. And for the record, because of the filing of this bill, when we requested the presence of LTFRB in deliberating in the lower house, we asked them, because of the legislative process being a tedious one, we requested them that while this particular bill is being deliberated upon, a memorandum circular could be issued to address the need of our riding public. And as a matter of fact, in April 2017, LTFRB issued memorandum circular number 2017-10, the title of which reads, Policy enjoining all operators, owners of public transport terminals, including stations and stopover rest areas to provide passenger-free access and use of sanitary facilities on all terminal stations and stopover rest areas. While it is true there is already an existing circular, but it would be better if this could be legislated because medyo permanente. Baka mamaya itong memorandum circular, when new administration comes, hindi ipatupad. So, considering the beneficial effects to the riding public and in remembrance of our former colleague, we earnestly seek the approval of this measure. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Congressman Sarmiento. I think naman we all agree here, no? That this is for the benefit of our countrymen. So let's go through this rather quickly, unless you have some major objection. But I'd like to acknowledge first Secretary Eliseo Rio of the DICT, and then Ms. Anisha Lanchico, San Pablo City District Office. Iba yata tong mga hearing na to. Pero sige, I will acknowledge you just the same. LTO Office. Mr. Romeo Buhay, LTO Balayan Extension Office. Mr. Greg Arellano, LTO Cavite Licensing Center. Engineer, babae yung ating engineer ngayon. Engineer Teodora D. Aguirre, LTO Batangas Licensing Office, ma'am. Siyempre si Asek Galvante, ano na namin yan dito mainstay na namin sa, sa hearings namin. Sir, wala nang kodigo sa mga LTO, ha? Okay. So, syempre si ASEC LV Medina, ASEC DOTR, at, well, and then I've already acknowledged the rest. So, let us begin now with, with Secretary Eliseo, sir, maybe your message of support na lang. or maybe if you have any concerns of the application of this.
No concern, Madam Secretary, Madam Chair. Actually, we are already doing this because of RA 10929, free Wi-Fi in all public places. No? And public places includes piers, bus stations, airports. So it's already included in RA 929 that we are now implementing. In fact, this year, we have, I think, designated 90 bus terminals, airports, with this. No? But we will, the law will actually cover all public places, bus stops, piers, and airports. And in fact, ma'am, EDSA, all of the 13 MRT3 stations are already, they have already free Wi-Fi. And some major airports also have already free Wi-Fi. In fact, in EDSA alone, the latest monitoring that we have, about 700,000 people access the free Wi-Fi in the MRT and also in the bus stops along EDSA.
You know, I'd like to try that. Actually, gaano kaya kabilis o kabagal yung pag gano'ng karaming gumagamit, no? Isa din yan sa concern natin kung ilang Mbps na lang they're reduced. Have you tried it yourself, Secretary, in these public places? How the speed of the internet? Kasi baka nakaalis na yung bus na sinasakyan nila, hindi pa nila nada-download yung litrato na...
Kung mabagal, ma'am, no? Actually, ma'am, there were measurements, and NTC has been monitoring this. We are getting, in fact, we are proud to say that in the EDSA MRT, the speed of download and upload speeds are always 2 digits, ma'am. So, hindi bumababa sa 10 megabits per second.
Sino ba nagbabayad ng subscription na yan?
Ito, ma'am, yung sa People Connect, yung because of RA 929, libre ho yun, ma'am, except mayroon lang cap.
Hindi po. Ibig sabihin, are the telco companies providing this service to the government for free, or is the government paying them?
Of course, ma'am, it is free to the people, public, but the government has to pay for this service, especially paying the telcos.
Can you give me an idea how much is being paid to them? Is it by the bulk for all public spaces such as this, or?
As far as the People Connect is concerned, ma'am, because they also have a system. In other words, the two telcos also bring free Wi-Fi in airports, in MRT. What they do is after 1 hour free subscription, then the subscriber has to pay for the next hour usage, no? Pero doon ho sa amin na ang budget hong binigay sa amin ng Congress for 22.7 billion is enough for about 12,500 access points. So ito ho yung aming pinabid na actually ngayong, it will be bidded middle part of March at i-roll out for the whole of this year and next year, ma'am.
Well, thank you. So it's about 2.7
ma'am,
for 12,500 access points. That is pretty reasonable, di ba? Kung
yes, ma'am.
Basta lang hindi
especially the speed, because we really specify, kasi kung free Wi-Fi at mahina, baka murahin pa tayo ng mga tao.
Correct.
So we actually specify na the speed must be not less than 4 megabits per second doon ho sa subscription ng gobyerno sa telcos. So,
well, that's good that you had that
yes, ma'am, we have that.
requirement. Okay, actually, pwede bang matanong si Mr. Yage? Sir, kayo po kasi yung walang katanda, hindi na napapalitan na president ng Bus Operators Association ng Provincial Bus. MTRCB pa lang ako. Siya na yung aming kausap sapagkat naalala ko yun ang mga nagpapalabas ng mga X-rated sa bus. Sabi namin, wag naman po kasi may mga batang kasama, medyo nakakalito na. Tapos, mga pelikula ni FPJ, maganda din, no? Pero, hindi X-rated, pero sinasabi ko, alam mo naman si FPJ sa mga baril at lahat na, may mga oras na kailangan ay namomonitor. So, Mr. Yage, welcome and it's good to have you again. My question is, with terminals that you have for provincial buses, are you able to comply with the free Wi-Fi and sanitary facilities for your passengers?
Good afternoon, once again, Madam Chairperson and Congressman Sarmiento. Good afternoon. Under Omnibus Franchising Guidelines sa DOTR 2017-11, is effective January 1, 2018, lahat na po ng bus na dapat namin i-substitute dun sa mga phased out buses ay kailangan na may Wi-Fi, may free Wi-Fi. And aside from that, meron pang dashcam, meron pang speed limiter, meron GPS, etc. So, but in the call ng Congress at saka ng LTFRB to have modernized buses, in 2013 po, marami na hong mga luxury deluxe buses ang provincial operators na meron ng free Wi-Fi sa bus. So, lahat po ng bus. And naitanong nyo kanina...
Sa terminal po, sa terminal mismo.
Meron na rin po. Requirement din po yan dun sa Omnibus Franchising Guidelines.
Yung pong mga restrooms, meron ba lahat ng terminals ninyo na provincial dito?
Ang provincial terminals po kasi, required lang po ang bus operator dun sa endpoint destinations niya. Dapat sarili niya yung terminal. Either sarili niya or nag-release siya sa isang common terminal. But along the way po, humihinto po ang bus, hindi lang po sa sarili niyang terminal, kundi sa mga common terminal. Like in Mapalacat, that's a common terminal. Humihinto rin po siya sa mga dito sa mga stations po dito sa loob ng NLEX, SLEX, humihinto rin po siya doon sa loob. So, hindi po niya kontrolon. At saka, after SLEX or NLEX, meron po mga mill stops along the way. And usually po, hindi po yung kontrolado ng bus operator. Ang bus operator lang po, ang control lang po niya, yung terminal niya within Metro Manila, at saka yung endpoint destinations like Baguio, Dagupan, meron po siyang terminal doon. Sarili po niya yan or leased terminal. Aside from that, si Congressman Sarmiento and some congressmen visited Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. And dapat din po yung mga rural ports, kailangan po na nila din ng facilities, pati Wi-Fi. And napansin po namin, pagka mayroong signal number 1 na bagyo, and yung mga rural ports po natin ay overcrowded ng tao kasi hindi ko nakakabiyahe yung ferry. So, yung capacity ng port, kunyari, let's say 500 or 1,000, minsan ang nandun sa port, mga 5,000, 6,000. You can just imagine po yung sanitation facilities na baka hindi ko kakayanin kasi minsan imbis na isang araw hindi makabiyahe, 2-3 araw minsan. So, yun po ang dapat natin natingnan kasi kontrolado po ng gobyerno yung rural ports. Pero yung sa terminal namin ay magmula po nung napaso ng Congress kay Congressman Dalog, sumunod na po kami rito.
Actually, Mr. Yagi, maraming salamat dun sa report ninyo, dun sa mga rural ports. You're right, that that's a responsibility of the government. Pero since malakas naman kayo sa inyong asosasyon, para bigyan ng dignidad ang ating mga mamamayan, dapat talaga yung pasilidad ng sanitary facilities, malinis talaga ang sanitary. Ang nakakalungkot nga minsan sa government facilities pa siguro mga 50 meters ka pa lang, naaamoy mo na 'Di ba? Parang, wag naman ganon. Because if we start cleaning our public places and facilities, they will maintain that standard wherever they go. 'Di ba? Parang, and they will not accept anymore that they be treated any other way. And that's the beginning of preserving the integrity, the dignity rather of the individual. And si Ms. Maricor, you wanna add anything here, ma'am? Kayo talaga advocate kayo niyan Oh.
Yes, good afternoon, Congressman, and good afternoon, Chairman. We are happy that it's going to be in the law that they should provide sanitary public places with toilets and bathrooms, okay? Or the only problem that we can notice is that, especially if you go abroad and you come here, ang laking diferensya ng public toilet at ng ating sa Pilipinas at ng sa abroad. Huwag mo nang sabihin na sa lahat sa abroad merong toilet paper. Dito wala, no? Kanya lang, sana may tubig. Hindi naman yung magsasando ka pa ng tubig sa gripo. Minsan wala pang flash, no? So, we'd like that the sanitary authorities will inspect these bus operators. Ngayon, there are some bus operators that charge a fee, no? Or they ask for a donation box. Kasi nga naman, hindi lahat ng pasahero ang gumagamit noon, pati yung mga kapitbahay siguro ng yung terminal nakikigamit, no? So, maybe there's a way of controlling that by presenting your ticket or something like that so that may control. Pero yes, we'd like to also probably add, because there are many women that also need sanitary napkins. Hindi namin sinasabing libre. Sana may dispenser. And together with the dispenser, kung pwede lagyan din ng, let's say, diatabs or something for LBM, pero binabayaran. Pero merong facility na pwede silang kumuha ng pangsakit ng ulo, sakit ng tiyan, yung first aid, kahit na alcohol or something, Kim wipes or something that they can get. Pero babayaran nila, pero at least accessible sa mga pasahero for their own safety, no? Hindi natin masabi kasi may nakaing bulok doon sa terminal, they would need those first aid kits. Maraming salamat po.
In fact, ma'am, okay, and not to promote anything, but let's say with the RH, I'm just saying, this is a law. This is one way also how the government can probably, but of course with our very conservative, kunwari pa na society, hindi siguro yan papasa. But in other countries, is what I'm saying, for prevention, they do that. Now, of course, we also want our morality standards to remain, but the reality is, it's a law. Diba? So anyway, that's not my hearing. Bahala na dyan si Senator JV. Health Diba? Health yun. Health. So, anyway, so punta kayo doon. Yun man yung ano. Okay, si Miss LV. Ma'am, kayo.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Congressman Sarmiento. Yung pong aming Office of Commuter Affairs, meron na po kami ngayong pinag-uusapan together with the Executive Housekeepers Association of the Philippines, yung pong mga executive housekeeper ng 5-star hotels. They are willing to help us train the people who keep these areas clean. Para po silang tumulong sa amin, number one, to set the standards of cleanliness. Yung pong sinasabi nila na how to inspect, what to inspect, and what we should expect. Katulad po noong gusto natin na pagpasok mo sa isang banyo, hindi ka na makakakita ng mga ipis na gumagapang o kaya maliliit na bubuit na biglang tatalon sa harap mo. This happens. So, kung gaano kalaki yung banyo, yung toilet, kung minsan yung tuhod mo, hindi naman, yung appropriateness po. So, yung pong Executive Housekeepers of the Philippines has had 2 meetings with us already. Naghihintay sila ng memo agreement so that they can present yung pong standards that our passengers will appreciate na minimum naman, at least minimum of safety, cleanliness at convenience, at saka yung sanitation talaga ng pagtuturo kung paano yung pag-control ng pest control, yung pong sanitation, how to keep it, lahat po yun, willing pong i-transfer ng Housekeepers Association.
Ma'am, ikaw ba yung namumuno dyan?
Opo.
Ay, nako, wag niyong tatantanan yan. Puntahan niyo yung mga bus terminals at talagang i-check, di ba? Lalo na sa mga...
Opo, we'll have to go get in touch po and coordinate with the LTFRB dahil ang LTFRB po ang mandated doon.
Alam mo, maganda dito sa LTFRB, babae rin yung si Miss Lizada, di ba? Siyempre lahat naman tayo ng babae, mas particular tayo. Yun yung ating purview, di ba? Yung kalinisan, yung pag-maintain. So, housekeeping, I like that. That's very important.
Yun po, yung Executive Housekeepers of the Philippines po
may executive pa.
Executive Housekeepers Association of the Philippines. Sila po ang mga head ng housekeeping ng mga 5-star hotels natin.
Oo.
Sila
Kasi
po yung
imagine,
tumutulong sa amin.
Alam mo, malaking bagay yan. Kunwari, ikaw ay foreigner. Pumunta ka sa Pilipinas, tapos expecting very little. Then you go to a public facility and the sanitation facilities are spotless. My God, but the impression, and it's not even expensive to create that impression. Diba? You don't even have to erect like so many buildings. Just the fact that it's clean and it's safe, I'm sure they'll come out impressed. Kaya para sa akin, Miss LV, if you have to focus on that, you have our support, and we thank you.
Ang sabi nga po nung executive housekeepers, we don't need so much money to do this. It's just a matter of elbow grease. You know,
Talagang yun ang pinakamahirap di ba? Parang somebody dedicated to actually do that. Okay, so...
And we're not just stopping to the terminals of the buses. We're going also to the LRT, MRT, stations, pati platforms.
Kasi siguro lang may tubig yung mga banyo nila.
Yes, ma'am.
That's the basic.
Yun po, opo. And but ma'am, one observation. Meron po kasing mga gas station na exclusive para sa members nila. Yung kanilang mga restroom. Nangyari po sa amin yan sa Santa Rosa. Hinanapan po kami ng membership card. Kung hindi ka member, hindi ka pwedeng gumamit ng
that's a private facility, so we can't really rely on them. Of course, there's a memorandum of agreement so that they will be included in the list of preferred gas stations where we would encourage our partners to go to. But it's a private facility, so in short, we should be reliant on ourselves and the association. So now, I'd like to maybe remind Sec. Eliseo, yung ating po mga ports na yung connectivity, yun lang, just tutukan po natin, just to be sure.
Yes, ma'am.
Tapos DOT, LTO ba dapat? LTO? Yung mga ports, dapat yun yung mga sanitation facilities. Kasi we'll call for another hearing. So maybe kayo na po, then we'll adjourn this hearing.
I just would like to raise a concern. Wala tayong problema sa, sabi mo, end-to-end, point-to-point Sa loading, may terminal kayo, it will end dun sa destination, another terminal. So meron tayo doon. But you have to remember, me being a Bicolano from Catanduanes, will board dun sa Tabaco, hindi naman diretso agad pupunta yan sa Maynila. So along the way, probably in Naga, and in between sa Quezon, we have to stop. Pero hindi nyo station yun But again, kayo ang nagde-decide kasi kung saan kayo hihinto. At kung merong commercial establishment doon na hinintuan ninyo, you are helping them a lot because you're bringing in customers. Kaya you could make an arrangement na yung mga pasahero ng bus, they are provided with a paid ticket. Upon presentation of the paid ticket, even that establishment does not belong to the bus company, but because you're bringing in good business to them, So you could make arrangement to permit the right passengers to utilize the sanitation facilities.
Noted, Congressman. Tama po yan. Actually, ako po mismo, meron po akong business venture dun sa, along the way, dun sa Chaong, Quezon. We stop at a McDonald's, so we have a tie-up with McDonald's. Wala akong bayad yung paggamit ng restroom.
Siguro ang pagkakaalam ko, kayo pa ang pag-aagawa na sabihin, dito na kayo huminto. Di ba? Kaya sana po, we have a corporate social responsibility and it's provided for in your franchise na to give comfort during the travel, isipin po yun. And as I stated earlier, considering the process, legislative process is quite tedious, we don't know when will this become into a law. So upon our prodding, LTFRB already issued, and one provision there provides that it's not the responsibility of the regional director of LTFRB to conduct inspection on the bus terminals twice a year to ensure na malinis ang mga sanitary facilities, plus they really don't collect fees for the use of the sanitary facilities.
Yes, sir. Noted po.
Umuwi talaga sa
Comply po.
Bicol, so check niya talaga yan. It's a long bus ride. Di ba, sir? So,
Kasi they provide ang laking isang bus, 80 passenger kakain sa'yo. Laking negosyo nun.
okay.
Tsaka pinag-aagawan sila ng mga establishment. Oh, dito na kayo.
Sir, ano mga pinapalabas sa TV?
Medyo, wholesome.
PG na ba? PG. Sige. So, dapat talaga mga... Okay. So, alright. Sa LTO na lang, alam mo kami naman, we're really for expansion. So, we just want to ask for the record, if you can just submit to us the documents so you can work with it, engineers, especially what are the projected number of transactions and existing capacity for each of these LTO offices para tapos yung cost-benefit analysis that have been conducted on proposed conversion of these licensing centers into regular LTO offices. We've done that already. So just submit it to the committee para we can move on our next topic. All right. So okay na, unless meron kayong gusto isumbong sa akin. Ngayon, naapi ba kayo doon? O ano? Wala nang kwadiko doon. Ayun talagang ayoko talaga yung kwadiko kasi pagka sila nakapasa ng exam based on cheating, they don't know the rules. That's why we have so many traffic infractions because they don't even understand the signs, sir. Yung mga review paraphernalia, dapat yan talaga online. At least it should be available already. Meron na? Wala pa rin.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, Congressman Sarmiento. Following your instruction, we are moving towards...
Towards pa rin? Ilang buwan po yun eh.
Right now, we have implemented, but having a new set of questions, for example, for student drivers, non-pro and professional. Because we have seen that sa ngayon po, ang examination ng drivers, pare-pareho whether he's going to be a professional driver or a public.
But basic road signs, at least we can begin with that. No?
It's part. In fact, one of the requirements that we are asking the driving schools is to have a module, yung basic module for all types of drivers.
Right.
And we organize them into wala pa po silang organization dati, ngayon po ay nakikipagtulungan na sila.
Basta sir, give it to me within a week. I want to see your manual. Kasi wala eh. Hanggang ngayon, ilan meeting na tayo dito, puro mabait lang kayo, sir. Kaya hindi ko kayo masyadong sinisita eh. Pero sa totoo lang, ano ba naman yung manual na yun? Tsaka yung online, bigay mo sa akin yung website na pwedeng puntahan. Kasi talagang we need to be able to educate our drivers. It begins there. No matter what laws we create, if they're ignorant of the road signs and rules, nothing's gonna happen. Okay, so moving forward, just submit these documents unless you have anything else to manifest. And then we shall now continue with our next topic, which is the NTC. Yes, sir. Pasensya na, at least, konti lang, 50 minutes na lang. Pasensya na po. Okay po. Alright. We shall now begin with the NTC. Uy, umalis tayo dito in a few minutes, ha? Para... So everybody take your seats. Wait, I think maybe we should take, talking about sanitation, let's take some break for a while before. Hello again, engineer. Thank you for being here. Ikaw na lang mag-conduct ng hearing. Okay, we resume. Thank you for your patience. This is House Bill number 6558 and Senator Recto Senate Bill number 68, seeking the strengthening and broadening of the powers of the NTC. The National Telecommunications Commission, or NTC, was created by Executive Order number 546 in 1979. The NTC was then under the Ministry of Transportation and Communications. The NTC is the agency in charge for the supervision, adjudication, and control over all telecommunications services. The regulation and development of the telco industry, on the other hand, is governed by RA 7925 of the Public Telecommunications Act of the Philippines, which was approved as law in 95. Noon pong naipasa ang Public Telecommunications Act, ay kaunti pa lamang ang mga linya ng telepono, may party line pa. Pag nakatulog yung kapitbahay mo at humihilig sa telepono, wala ka naman din magawa kundi puntahan at gisingin. Naabutan mo ba yun, engineer? Hello, party line, pakibaba. Hindi yun maisip ng mga anak namin eh. Parang, what's a party line? What's a rotary phone? Diba? I don't know if you saw this movie. May isang model, diba? May rotary phone dun sa motel na tinitira niya. Nakita, galit na galit siya, pinipindot niya yun. Anyway, so it's good to have that past experience to appreciate also the leaps and bounds of technology that has sometimes become untenable also, no? At so yung mga gumagamit ng cellphones noon na kasing laki ng ng sat phone. Ang PLDT po noon ay mayroon lamang 2 milyong subscribers at mayroon lamang halos 500,000 cellular mobile phone at pager subscribers. Social ka pa kung may pager ka noon. Diba? Lumundag po tayo sa kasalukuyang panahon. Reports say that we now have 120.3 million prepaid mobile subscribers, more than our population, including the babies, di ba? And there are 5.4 million postpaid mobile subscribers. Higit sa lahat, wala pa noon ang ngayon ay patuloy ang paglawak ng internet sa Pilipinas. Today, we are here to seek meaningful amendments to strengthen and broaden the powers of the NTC and to upgrade RA 7925 to compel the delivery of better services for telco providers. So we have it here now, no? What we're going to do is we're going to ask first Sec. Eliseo, I'm sorry, Engineer Cabarios, ano ba itong mga provisions dito na kailangan ninyo to broaden your powers? And then, of course, we will also have our vigilant groups here with democracy.net to tell us also what we have to look out for. So, sir, let me begin with you, Engineer.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Republic Act 7925 was enacted primarily to regulate the voice service at that time. And all the provisions in that law refer to voice services. And there are provisions here in the law that are anti-competitive provisions, and we have proposed the amendment of those provisions to remove the anti-competitive provisions of the law. And we also have proposed the amendment in Section 18 of the law, interconnection charges, so that the Commission will have the power to review and approve interconnection agreements, and also po yung penalties, because 7925 does not have penal provision po siya. So we fallback is Public Service Act, which is CA 146, which is 200 pesos per day. So yun po yun. So the proposed amendment dito we of course welcome all of the proposed amendments. We also propose that since 7925 was really promulgated to regulate voice, so all internet and data related provisions po dito be included in a separate bill, which is the open access bill, para ho dun na mag-concentrate all internet and data services
So
provisions.
separate po dito sa bill na pinopropose?
Yes, kasi dito sa bill na pinopropose, isinama po kasi dito yung internet and data-related services and networks na mas mabuti if it could be included in a separate bill. Meron naka-file sa Senate, which is the open access bill. Naroon na po yun.
What's your opinion, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
Point taken. About Engineer Gala.
Yes, ma'am, it's Galia. Thank you very much for inviting us again today.
Of course, you're our mainstays here, sir. You add credibility to our hearing kasi. No, please, your comments on the proposed bill and also the manifestation of Engineer Cabarrios.
That was an excellent statement by Director Cabarrios, actually. By DepCom Cabarrios, because the open access bill is already moving. It's in the Senate, and it's going to create the kind of regulatory and competitive environment that we want for data services. Whereas 7925, the way that it should be amended should be towards the powers and regulatory capabilities of the NTC. With that being said, ma'am, if you'll allow me, there's something that I'd like to remind the committee of. I will be quoting excerpts from a story entitled Telecom Battle Building Up, dated December 2, 2015. And this was published in the Manila Standard. The first paragraph reads, "The battle over the powerful wireless bandwidth held by San Miguel Corporation heats up as Philippine long-distance telephone company threatened to file a case against an official of the National Telecommunications Commission for his alleged statements on the difficulty of reallocating the frequencies to other companies." PLDT said it might sue NTC NTC Director Edgardo Cabarrios for alleged misleading statements about the controversial 700 megahertz frequency band. It says here, to quote, "For these reasons, we have referred the statements of Director Cabarrios to our legal counsel for appropriate judicial and administrative actions." Taking the side of Director Cabarrios, the story says, Cabarrios said he was just replying to the media's questions and his answers were based on facts. "I am speaking on behalf of the Commission," he said. This anecdote that I'm relating points out to something that's missing in some of the proposals for legislation of the regulatory powers of the NTC. Even if we expand the powers of the NTC, even if we allow them the regulatory latitude, if we do not protect our NTC officials, our regulators in general, from frivolous lawsuits and whatnot, if they do not have a litigation shield that apparently the Philippine Competition Act provides to the Philippine Competition Commission, if they do not have a similar means of being protected from frivolous lawsuits, then the threats to officials like Director Cabarrios might give them a chilling effect. They might not become effective regulators. And that's our general statement.
Wow, can you imagine, no? Democracy.ph is actually taking your side in this particular issue. But okay, let me ask you, just to play a devil's advocate here. There should be limitations also on the extent of their, what do you call this, immunity. Okay? So, what are the safeguards? Kasi obviously if it's corruption, di ba? Hindi. But in this particular case, who was trying to sue them? Smart ba?
Ma'am, it was PLDT. The statement was made by PLDT Head of Regulatory Affairs and Policy, Rhea Espinosa.
Nako, mahirap kalaban si Attorney Ray.
Ma'am, I know. But,
gagamitin niya yung constitution, talagang
yes,
ano
ma'am.
dyan.
So,
Alam ko na yan, sa MTRCB, siya na yung constitutionality kaagad yung titirahin niya.
Ma'am, the beauty of it is that there's already an existing framework. We can copy or sort of the Philippine Competition Acts, how they did it, how it was written. It says that you are protected, or the official is protected when he is acting or speaking in his official capacity. So things like corruption, things that we watch out over, they are not protected from that. But if it's in the exercise of their duties, like if I make a pronouncement, if I were in the NTC and I make a pronouncement on spectrum, on refarming and clawback, or on whether or not there should be on auction or beauty contest, this is part of their functions. Therefore, they should not be threatened because they said something. That's part of their work.
Parang yung immunity sa Senate during hearings and sessions pronouncement. So, this is something that you would like to include in the House Bill 6558?
Ma'am, it's
I mean, I'm sorry, Senate Bill 68?
if it's possible, yes,
I think
please.
that would be a good idea. We will just and also to give you the added authority to stand your ground. Kasi o nga naman, you know what? Especially with the NTC, there are so many interests at stake. So it's very difficult if you have that threat, and I laud you for actually empowering the government properly. Of course, we don't want unnecessary powers, frivolous powers that might actually lead to incompetence also or complacency. But I think this is good since we have a precedent with PCC that they've already been given that. In fact, even Congress and the Senate has that. All right. So what else? What else, sir? Any more?
Ma'am, that's to our way of thinking the most important provision that should be provided. And if we take off from House Bill 6558, which was really carefully crafted, if the Senate adopts it and includes the provision of some sort of litigation shield, that would be probably the most efficient way of doing things. We can give the NTC as many powers as it can, but without the protection of the officials, because at the time, ma'am, Deputy Commissioner Cabarios then was only the director for regulation. He was down pa. He wasn't the deputy commissioner pa. And if, for example, we offer only the shield towards the commissioners, paano naman yung mga regulatory officials down the line who are just exercising their roles within the organization? So if the shield will be extended to such persons, then that would be sufficient. The powers as it stands in 7925 may already be sufficient because we have the open access bill that's almost ready here in the Senate. But if we're going to really go for future-proofing amendments, let's take off from House Bill 6558 and then add the inputs on litigation shield.
So based on your study or review of it, the House bill is carefully crafted with just with this added provision to make it more viable. All right, thank you. We appreciate that. Perhaps I can ask the PCC about the recommendation. Has it helped you?
Just to buttress Engineer Galia's statement, so there's in fact a provision and an indemnity granted to PCC, and it extends not only to commissioners, to the officials, but also to ordinary employees and agents of the PCC. So I guess this would be good for a regulatory body such as the NTC to have such provision on indemnity in its charter. On the other hand, with regard to the proposed amendments to RA 7925, the PCC has participated in the drafting, in the finalization of the House bill in the lower house. That's why, as such, we are happy with the current version. But if ever the body, if ever the representative suggests any any revisions there too, we would be happy to provide with our comments and possible position paper on the matter.
Okay, thank you.
On another note, ma'am,
Okay.
we also know that since the Open Access Bill, Senate Bill 171, is pending in the Committee on Science and Technology, we deem that the regulation of the internet is maybe perhaps better there, since it's more encompassing. It would be better, I mean, for the competition aspect, since it's comprehensively regulated in the Open Access Bill, Madam Chair.
Okay, would it be counterproductive to have the internet regulations also included here? Or it's better wag na? Wag na. Okay. Can you like check na lang our version later on for our committee report, just to be sure? Not that I don't trust the government sector, but no, but just so, because we don't want to over-regulate, di ba? Parang when it comes to these things. Globe?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. I agree actually with the statement of DepCom Cabarios a while ago on folding in the Senate Bill 68 with that of the Open Access Bill. And in fact, the industry, the Philippine Chamber of Telecom Operators, has taken the position that in fact we should actually codify various telecommunications laws, because at this time we compare several laws, public service laws, RA 7925, the radio control laws. And perhaps it would be, if there's time actually, it would be good if we can codify a new Telecoms Act, including regulation of the transmission industry, which is represented by the Open Access Act. And, well, I agree also with Engineer Gali that we should future-proof any law dealing with the telecommunications industry. Our only ask, actually, Madam Chair, is that the penalties provided there under the House bill should be reviewed, because it's quite stiff.
Which one? The what?
Penalty provisions.
What? Okay, of course you'll always say it's stiff, right?
We agree.
200 pesos
Yes.
yata? How much?
Yeah, yes, Madam Chair, we agree that 200 pesos is quite low at this time.
So much.
But we need to update it so it's not confiscatory. Like the proposal in Congress is 1% to 2% of gross revenues.
Medyo mataas yun. Okay, so, you know, you can work together. Let's have a technical working group here to look at the version that we are. Of course, we don't want to over-penalize also, but we want it to be a potent reminder also. Kasi if it's just a slap on the wrist, wala lang yan, di ba? Bayaran mo na lang yung fine na yan. Or forfeit your escrow. You know, it's almost the same thing. So it has to be something that pinches you a bit so that you can comply. But thank you for calling our attention to it. Certainly, we don't want to break your back also with these penalties. Ms. Tocayo, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Grace Santos from the Internet Society. We're also a non-profit organization working with actually democracy.net.ph. I agree with the statements made earlier that regulation for internet and basic telecom services should be separate, simply because the two operate differently. So in telecommunications, we've seen that in the past there was a monopoly, but then history has shown us that even telecommunications, basic telecommunication services such as your voice calls and cellular mobile services can now be provided by several companies, several operators. The internet, however, works differently because you can have internet connection even in small pockets of networks. So you don't have to connect to a centralized system or a network for you to offer internet. So internet thrives in decentralization and distribution. So the more networks you have that are interconnected, the more robust and resilient your network is. And that actually benefits everyone, big and small players alike. That said, the Internet Society would like to indicate its preference for HB 6558 because it is specific to basic telecom service, and we totally support having the passage of a separate law on open access in data transmission, which now governs internet access. For RA 7925, we'd like to amend some of the provisions there, particularly defining the role of the NTC now that we have both telecom services and internet services. Because when in 1995, when RA 7825 was passed, there was no contemplation of how big the internet will become. So it was not commercially available back then. But now that more and more people, including the telcos themselves, are getting into the internet service, we believe that the NTC as the regulator should now have a more clearly defined role in the internet age. We have to also have very specifically, we also recommend having transparent and consistent procedure for regulating, areas like interconnection, spectrum assignment, which I believe in RA 7925 are existent, but they are not as clear as we would want them to be. For example lang ma'am, yung sa interconnection nakalagay doon, interconnection rates will be, it's a bilateral negotiation between two parties, and the agreement or the result of the agreement will be submitted to NTC. Period. That's it. No, no approval whatsoever and no oversight. So, these things have to be clarified in, the amendments to RA 7925.
May I ask you guys a favor? I think that, as you know, the Senate is quite stretched, as I'm sure you are also, but with your expertise, and we don't claim to be experts, but you are, because you've been following this for many years, if you could just look at submit to us a version or be with us as we draft this final version, so that when we present it, it's ironclad on both sides. Because anyway, they're supportive of you, di ba, sir? So, mag-TWG na tayo para ma-approve na natin, and then I will also be supportive of Senator Bam's open access bill, so that we can have this rolling already immediately. So just work with us, because I like what I'm hearing from you. You're being reasonable. You're not just contradicting for the sake of contradicting, but because you want it to be feasible and you want it to be just. So please work with us. We want it to be a successful law. Okay, maybe I haven't heard Attorney Chad. Attorney, what do you have to say?
Your Honor, good afternoon, but I would have to defer to the comments of my principal, Yusek Rio.
Okay, how about Sec. Eliseo before I wrap up?
Madam Chair, yes, we fully support Senate Bill number 68 with the necessary amendment made by what was discussed here today. And, well, the ICT's role actually in this particular bill was just to make sure that all the OTC are changed to the ICT. And it is changed, madam.
I'd like to give everybody a chance to speak. How about you, sir? You haven't spoken yet. You're with PCC as well, right?
Yes, madam.
Ano ba PCC? Daming bata, no? Okay.
We will be submitting our comments in the side of the competition standpoint of the law. We would be providing comments, and I defer to Attorney Giancarlo Agdamag for any insights that we may be providing. So.
I think that your particular role here would be to show us that immunity from suit is actually quite helpful. But that's when it comes to official functions and statements on your job, obviously. Alam mo naman natin yung mga kabangga natin dito, higante, di ba? The government should have its checks and balance, but also the private sector should not also be able to bully when it comes to regulations that can that actually encourages fair play, di ba? Yun lang naman. So actually, engineer, where do you work now, engineer? Kasi minsan to hinihiram natin sa trabaho niya. Where do you work now?
Ma'am, right now, I am busy helping out with the third telco thing. But I'm not paid for it. Right
Why
now,
not?
Ma'am, I've taken a break from the private sector.
Which is where before?
Before I was working for a bank.
Okay.
Cybersecurity.
So now you're helping the DICT?
We are involved. as stakeholders on
So
our
the
NGO
third,
capacity.
okay, this is off topic now.
Yes,
Third telco player.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, as you know, we are also amending the Public Services Act
Yes, ma'am.
to allow foreign investments to come in.
Yes, ma'am.
Lisa, are you for it? Have you seen our version of the bill?
Ma'am, from our perspective, it doesn't matter where the competitors will come from for as long as many competitors will come in.
Exactly. So you're not averse to it either.
We are not.
So our law, as you know, is restrictive, right? Because of the
Yes.
60-40 rule.
Yes.
So are you amenable to opening it up?
If in the wisdom of the draft shows that this is the best way to ensure competition, we're all for it. Ma'am, we have a common joke in the ICT sector that we say, we do not care where the new competitors come from, even if they come from Mars. So if they come in, we're not even looking for the third telco, we're looking for 300 telcos. That sort of thing.
Oh, that's good. Thank you for that perspective. In fact, hindi ba, so okay lang sa'yo China, di ba? There's always this talk na China might spy on us. Hello, now it's so lax anyway. They can do it even without being a provider.
Ma'am, they're already here anyway.
Exactly. Okay, Grace.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to just emphasize that the Internet Society and Democracy.net.ph were actually partners of the Better Broadband Alliance. It's a coalition of different stakeholders, and we submitted our statement of support for the amendments to the Public Service Act because we believe that if you open up the market to any type of player, you're leveling the playing field for foreign and domestic players alike.
Can I already ask you to be here during the period of interpellations, ha? Just so that I can show na, oh, look in our audience, for support. Because, you're right. Of course, people will try to threaten you and say, mga banyaga. Ako personally, of course, we have to be careful. Okay? But, ako yung lupa lang yung sa akin. Na hindi sila pwedeng land ownership. And my reason is because maybe I'm limited also in my example, but what happened to Palestine? You wake up one day and then you're overtaken. But businesses, they create jobs. So as long as they're subject to the same rules and not given an unfair advantage over our local companies. In fact, our local companies might be given a leg up. I mean, why not have them here? And napansin nyo, engineer, bigla na lang binigyan namin ng franchise yung iba. Now Telecom, biglang are they the third player?
Ma'am, I don't know. But
Pero nakakagulat, di ba? Baka nagro-roadshow na sila trying to get funding. I mean, that's not bad. I'm just saying that you're right, and I'm glad you're the one that brought it up. If you don't mind, I will borrow from you when I'm asked, and I'll say, we're not just looking for a third player, we're looking for a fourth, fifth, sixth, and
300.
anybody who would like to invest in the country, correct?
Ma'am, it's like this, that something that I think the discussion on the Public Service Act, this committee actually, on the Public Service Act was in the crafting of the bill. One thing that may not have been emphasized is that 21st century telecommunications no longer forms natural monopolies. It's not like water where you put a pipe and then that's it. It's not like power where you put down a line, redundancy equals inefficiency. As Grace earlier discussed, we want more networks because more networks, more switches, more local loops makes the system more efficient, more robust, less prone to attack, less difficult to take down, more resilient against disasters. There's so many advantages to decentralization, distribution, and recognition that will never be a natural monopoly.
Okay, now having said that, okay, so it's not going to be a natural monopoly, but don't you still need infrastructure to be able to be competitive in sending your internet signals or whatever? I mean, di ba makikihiram ka rin? Unless it's a cellular tower na we will have reciprocity with other telco companies, but that's still, please explain to us.
Madam Chair.
Enlighten us.
Yes, the good thing about the internet is that there are so many internet technologies out there. So right now we are used to using technology that the two telcos are now providing us, but there are so many others out there that are either being used by other countries or being tested. So it's not only fiber optic networks, it's not only cellular networks. you know, you have your satellites, you have your TV white space, you have your cable TV.
The satellites actually work. I mean, okay, I'll tell you, as early as, when was this? I used to work in sales, and then I had a child, so I would stay home, okay? This was early 2002, and there was like a satellite service so that I could have connectivity. Super bagal pa nun. Ngayon ba, okay na? Satellite,
This is going to be a little bit nerdy, ma'am, ano?
No, go ahead. You know, as long as we understand it, go ahead.
Satellite before, during those times, they were using a band called C band. So that was relatively slow. And then a couple of decades later, there's a band called KU. And that's now the preferred way of making broadband through satellite. But there is now a band that they have opened up called KA, which is even much faster.
So C,
it's
tapos
getting better.
KU, KA.
Yes, so it's getting better. Now, there are of course certain limitations, like because of the atmosphere, because of rain and things like that. But the point is, like Grace was pointing out, the internet is not limited by technology. Tomorrow, technology will be different. There is now being tested, field tested, what they call Li-Fi, meaning through LED light, you will be able to get signal for broadband purposes. That's currently being tested, meaning it's not future technology already, it's already here. So that's why the importance of the open access bill is there, so that it encourages so many technologies and companies to come in, plus what you are doing with the Public Service Act to allow for the 300 telcos to come in.
You know, what we have to take care of in this bill is that it would be able to adjust to the times. Especially what we are trying to legislate here has something to do with technology, which is open-ended. So I will ask our honorable resource persons here, since again I will claim that we don't have the monopoly of what's best for the industry, to please look at our version of the bill, because I don't want the law to constrain. I want the law to enable. Okay, so help us. Kasi between tanggal bulok, tanggal usok thing that we have to do, the MRT na ina-upgrade, and public information fake news that are all within the purview of my committee, and the free lunch program for public elementary schools. I think we need somebody who is really focused on this issue to be able to proofread our version. Okay? Because this is the Senate of the people. This is not an exclusive organization. This has to be receptive to the needs of the people. So I will ask for your patriotism and help us. Sir, before we close, go ahead.
Ma'am, I almost forgot one thing that restricts the number of telcos is our limited spectrum. It is not, as of now, equitably distributed. Mainly because, Madam, to give spectrum to a telco needs only an administrative order from NTC. But to get it back, in cases where these spectrums are no longer being used, or actually just being warehoused to be sold to the highest bidder, this needs a quasi-judicial procedure. In other words, the one who was awarded this frequency can bring us up to the Supreme Court. So right now we have a number of spectrum not being used or being warehoused, no? And it takes some time, very difficult for us to get them back, because we will always be...
So what would you suggest?
Well, Madam, as long as we have if we can only prove two things, no? The spectrum is not being used, and they are not paying spectrum users fee. We can easily say that the spectrum is not being used because NTC did not get any permit to import the equipment that can use the spectrum. No? These two should be without anymore them being able to bring us to court. These two could be
Your comment,
enough.
Mr. Galia.
Ma'am, I'm torn because the House bill has some mention of spectrum management, which is a good start. But spectrum management in the Philippines is based on a different law. I mean, it's governed by a different law, which is Republic Act 3846, which is 1930s old and definitely should be amended eventually. Something that the Public Service Committee might consider would be to pass a spectrum management law. Because spectrum management is not just about telecoms. It's also about broadcast. It's also about maritime.
May I
and all that.
ask you, Mr.
Yes,
Engineer? So spectrum, no? So is it something like just pulled out of thin air? We only have like this much spectrum, or is there really a capability limitation? Like,
Ma'am, spectrum is finite. That's
finite
it.
pala. So bakit natin sinasabi na, okay, for the third player we have, okay, so Ramon Ang, SMC had the spectrum, di ba, granted to him. And then, he sold it. So sinasabi natin, we have this available now because it was sold, but a certain number of spectrum was returned to the government. Right. So the government, aside from the one that's returned to it, can actually say, oh, we create more spectrum? Meron talagang limitation. Okay. Please educate the ignorant. Tell me, what sets the limitation?
To simplify it na lang po, insofar as transactions like that are concerned, we are not opposed to mergers and acquisitions. In fact, that's why we have the PCC. But spectrum is patrimony. You know, we only, the Filipino people own spectrum, and we only allow the telcos the privilege of using spectrum.
Can you increase it?
No, ma'am, you cannot. That's
Why?
it.
Because there
Laws
is
of physics,
an
ma'am.
actual limit based on...
The laws of physics. Talagang it cannot, you cannot put fertilizer on it and it will grow. It's just fixed.
It's fixed.
It's fixed.
How do you determine the limit of a spectrum?
For example, ma'am, the 900 megahertz band, which is used for GSM communications, that's from 890 megahertz to about 990. So that's 100. That's 100. That will never increase. It's always
So even
100.
in other countries,
Yes, ma'am.
regardless of size, the spectrum remains to be...
Correct, ma'am. So there are methods that are being done in many other countries. Some of the best practices are being done by the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, TRAI. India, they're doing it pretty well, and there are some practices I think that we can adopt. But again, back to my earlier point about patrimony and mergers and acquisitions. Okay lang naman po if, for example, I will buy Grace's company, and she just so happens to be a spectrum rights holder. But once I acquire her company and her assets and her cell site towers, that doesn't mean I get the spectrum that's assigned to her. Dapat her spectrum is returned first to the government for later auction, bid out, or whatever.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I think we've already exhausted the discussion here. I just want your position papers and to work with us in a technical working group. We're 20 minutes over time, but I appreciate your presence here today, and please work with us. You are our stakeholders. We want you to succeed. The government's not here to curtail your growth, but the government is here to make sure that it's just for our countrymen. Okay? So this meeting is now, well, this hearing is now adjourned. Thank you very much. Thank you.